Welcome to Simone Talks. My show today is about addiction. Many people suffer from it, and while some never get away from the ties that bind them, there are others who have great and wonderful, victorious survival stories. And we love those stories. And today, my guest is an overcomer and an author of a book, No More Shadows, and memoir by Sharita Brandon. And I want to welcome Sharita Brandon, overcomer, wonderful, victorious storyteller. Welcome to Simone Talks.
Thank you, Simone. Pleasure to be with you.
I am so glad that you are willing to share your story because a lot of people need to hear it. And I
Yes.
do believe that those persons in those types of situations are able to help somebody else who may be contemplating or who have gone through the same thing and looking for that way out to get where you are today,
Yes.
even though the struggle continues. So tell us, first of all, happy anniversary. Today
Thank
is
you.
Sharita's anniversary. Yeah,
Yes, 6 years. I've done it.
6 years. And that is a testament to your story, your victorious survival, overcoming story. 6 years is a big deal.
For me,
Yeah,
Simone, it really is.
yeah. We're going to talk about your background and your history and all that kind of stuff from the beginnings and to get to you where you are today. So let's
Okay.
talk about the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Actually, I was born here in Washington, D.C. at Providence Hospital, of course, December 5th, 1965. Um, my mother had moved with her sister, which is my aunt, my oldest aunt, and we stayed in Palmer Park. My life there was like up and down, going to schools, in and out of from Maryland schools to DC schools. So when my mother finally moved back to DC, I came home with her.
Mhm.
We basically stayed up on Willow Road between, Martin Luther King Avenue, Alabama Avenue, that area.
Okay.
Um, I went to various schools. Started out Magani Annex. Went to William W.B. Patterson,
Okay.
Friendship. I
Mhm.
can name all these schools. Hart, Baloo Senior High, Go Knights.
You
Yes,
covered the DC grounds over there.
I did. I did. And it wasn't until we moved to Southview Apartments in Oxon Hill, Maryland. That's where my life did a topsy turvy.
Okay. Is that where things started to, you know, okay.
Downhill. So yes, I was 13 years old. In
Mhm.
fact, I had just turned 13 and going to, no, actually, yeah, I was turning 13 that December. So following, actually like 14, I was raped by five guys at gunpoint. And
Goodness.
the sad thing about it is these guys, they were quote unquote like my brothers.
Oh, wow.
My mother took care of them when their mother put them out. They slept in our house. They ate at our table.
Mhm.
So this particular day, I was working at the McDonald's on Southern Avenue, and it was a summer job thanks to Marion Berry giving us teenagers a chance.
Mhm.
And I was coming home, and it's a little pathway that you walk up to get towards my building. So as I was going up that building, I saw them out there, and they were playing with me. So everybody called me by my middle name, which is Annette, because a lot of people couldn't pronounce Sharita. So yeah, right. That's off for me, but I went by that. And they were like, "Hey, Annette, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." I'm like, "You had a hard day for work?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they just was playing around, tossing me around. I'm like, "Come on, I'm ready. I'm going in the house." Then the guy's like, "You're not going nowhere. You want to give us some?" And da 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 da. And they commenced to raping me. It was so bad. I mean, it was like repeatedly, each of them taking their turn with me, and then they just left me there in the dirt in the woods by my apartment building until someone happened to be coming up and saw me.
Oh my gosh. I
Yes.
didn't know that, Sharita.
Yeah, it's a lot of things I didn't tell people because
Mhm.
growing up in my household, it was like whatever happens at your house stays in your house.
So you never got justice for that.
No. And to be honest, I wrote it in a book. A lot of the guys in Southview, they look at us little girls as their kids. So during that time, a lot of stuff was going on, the killings and all that. And I can only say that they were taken care of by someone else's hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how did you communicate with them after? Did you see them after, or was it just
No.
passing by, or?
Okay. So like I said, I was like, I was basically secluding myself from the outside,
Hmm.
and that's when the drugs came in to like make me feel better, to make me not feel the pain I was going through, running from the feelings instead of talking about it.
Wow.
And I think what hurt me the most was my mother. She was the type of woman, God rest her soul, but she was the type of woman that brushed everything under the rug, you know. Um,
Mhm.
I had went to the hospital and I was torn up pretty bad, you know. I had to get a little reconstruction on my body,
Wow.
and for like I said, for a 13-year-old, you don't know really what to expect out of life because you're just starting to live your life.
Yeah.
That's your teen years. That should be special times.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that. My life right then turned to drugs and alcohol right then and there. My mother was smoking marijuana, drinking very heavily.
Mhm.
My father was in and out the household, by being in and out of jail and prison. He would beat my mother.
Hmm.
And I always thought that when you beat someone, that means you love them, because she would always come out the room after he beat her, happy and joyful, and make excuses like, oh, don't worry about it. He had a bad day. How can you have a bad day when you're not even doing anything? You don't even have a job.
And so this was not just starting at 13. You had been living in an abusive household
The whole
that
time.
the whole time. Oh, wow.
Yes.
For 13 years.
For
So
13
what
years.
was your first um, what was your first drug, the first time you tried drugs? Your
Like
first
I
drug
said, the
experience.
very first time I tried drugs was, like I said, 13, when I got raped.
Right. And so what was your choice, I should say? What was the
Oh,
choice of drug?
you mean as growing up?
Well, after the rape, what was your choice of drug?
Okay. After that, it was PCP.
Wow. At
PCP.
13?
Yeah, at 13, it was like the they call it love boat, butt naked. It
Yeah.
it was like when I smoked that, I
Hmm.
was in another world. You
Hmm.
know, I could be sitting on my porch and I can smoke that dipper. That's like, they dip it in a cigarette,
Hmm.
and I would smoke that, and I look around and I'm totally somewhere else.
Hmm.
And nothing bothered me. I had no care in the world. And then from there, it went to freebasing.
Wow.
And I got high with my parents. So I always told people that once you get high with your parents, that's when the line crosses.
Hmm.
They're no longer your parents. They're your get high buddies, and you treat them, as they say, quote unquote, your cruddy buddies.
Hmm.
They do you wrong. You're gonna get back at them. Pay me my money. You got this from me. It was a whole big ball of confusion.
Mm. And so how long did you live with in that type of environment? When
Um,
when were you able to get out of the house?
okay, so this had to have been when I was going to Baloo,
Hmm.
and that was like 81, 82. My mother and I was getting high, and she had stole something from me, and I always tell people that's a typical person. When you smoking crack, you're gonna lie, you're gonna cheat, you're gonna steal from your loved ones just to get what you want, to satisfy your need.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
at that time when she stole it, and I asked her about it, and she kind of like bucked up on me. I'm your mother. You in my house selling this, and I pulled my hand back to get ready to hit her. So when I raised my hand to hit her, and my cousin grabbed my arm, that's when I looked at my mother, and I went in the room and packed my stuff. I said, it's time to go. You
Yeah.
know, when you raise your hand at your parent, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you go?
I actually went around the corner on 8th Street to one of my friend's house, and the whole time I was there for maybe like a week or two,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother would call over there asking, is Sharita okay? Tell her come home. I know she didn't mean it. It's the drugs, and tell her come home. I love her. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually I came back home, and we talked about it. And like I said, I told my mother, you know, I apologized to her, but I told her, you know, this is not the life that we both should be living, because you being a parent, you're supposed to be setting examples for me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you're supposed to be showing me a path that I should be going in the right direction, not downhill.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother, like I said, being, you know, the only one to raise me, because like I said, my father was in and out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
She really didn't know what to do, because like I said, she was working so much to pay the bills. My father would come over there, steal the money, you know, and it was like he just left us for dead, really, if that's, you know, if that's the term you want to use,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't know whether we're going to be able to stay in that house, or we're going to get put out. He didn't care, because he had places to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you did have a faith base. Tell us about some of those experiences.
So when I tried to get myself together the first time when I went into treatment, I, of course, was at Rehoboth,
Mm-hmm.
and I had dedicated my life to God then. I said it had to be something better that could save me from self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
I lost myself into the music and everything, just singing with the choir, you know, actually, you know, going over your house for the little grab bag sessions.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I remember those. So, you know, that took me out of, you know, the things I were doing to show me that there's something else positive out there than drugs,
Yeah.
you know. Um, when I went back into my old neighborhood, I slipped back and I started back with the because at that time it stopped, the freebase stopped. Now it was just crack cocaine, you
Wow.
know.
And
Yeah,
what
it was
at
crack.
what age did you get introduced to crack?
I got introduced to crack after I got out of Baloo. So that was the end of 82 going into 83.
Coming out of high school.
Yes.
Okay. And so
And I
reading
thought
through
that
your
was a
book,
wonderful thing.
you were talking about I got up pretty early and I had to rush home because I had to go to church. If I didn't go to church, I would never hear the end of it. And you mentioned attending Rehoboth Baptist Church and sang in the choir. And whenever we sang was the only time I really felt like going to service. That was when I was most happy.
Yeah. It was like, okay, the pastor that time, Reverend Palmer, bless his soul, he was a very encouraging man. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you ever had a problem, his office was always open to you. And I really enjoyed that because he became the father I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
He was one I can go to and say, Reverend Palm, I'm going through this. How do I handle this situation? And we would sit back, I would cry, we would talk, and he would pray for me, you know, and excuse me, it was like I told him, I said, Reverend Palmer, you know, the only time I find joy is when I come to church and sing in the choir. Your word, it's like everything that he preached on a Sunday, it just hit my soul. It's like that was what I was going through, and I had to rectify myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So it
it
became something like a safe haven.
very safe because,
Thank
like I said, I lived right around the corner from the church, so it was many times I would just walk through the back way of my apartment building in Randall Hill and just walk and sit on the church step.
you.
You know, just to pray. You know, ask God to forgive me, take this from me. You
Yeah.
know, I want a better life. And like I said, when you fall back into those old streets and
Mm-hmm.
the old neighborhoods and the people, you know, you want to be just like them because if you're not doing what they're doing, you're nothing. You know, they don't want you with it. You're not in that clique no more.
Mm-hmm. So you stayed because you remained in that environment. What we're going to do is, Sharita, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and
Okay.
we'll be right back with more stories about addiction and overcoming with Sharita Brandon right after this.
Hello, I'm Edward Anderson, CEO of TTMP Corporation, with a heartfelt thanks to all those on the front line during this COVID-19 outbreak. Police, fire and rescue, healthcare, and essential workers, please stay safe. Here at TTMP, we celebrate 20 years of supporting IT and critical environmental needs of businesses. Together, let's work out a solution to keep your business moving forward. Please contact us at ttmpsolutions.com. And again, stay safe.
Welcome back to Simone Talks. Today we are talking about addiction and overcoming those addictions. Now, speaking with Sharita Brandon, who has an overcomer story, and she is an author speaking about her experiences with addiction. Now, there were several types of addiction, Sharita, and from our discussions, you mentioned PCP, you mentioned marijuana, you mentioned crack cocaine. What are some other types of things that you may have tried, or were those just your choices?
No, then, as they say, riding that white horse. When I got that heroin for the first time,
Wow.
I was in heaven. It's like I found just what I was looking for after all these years of searching through these drugs.
So it's starting with one. It became not enough, and so, or was just because people were introducing it to you, and sure you would try it.
I would, yeah, different places I worked, I would, be with it's like I always fell with the wrong people.
Mhm.
It's like I could sniff out drugs anywhere. The thing was, I had worked at Time Life Library, and I met a guy, and he introduced me to Quaaludes, and I was like, "What is this?" I tried, and I was zooming all through the daggone Channel 5 building, not knowing, answering the phone, making sales and everything, but I thought it was the hippest thing to do. But like I said, when I got that heroin for the very first time, I snorted it. That's the first time I had put something up my nose, and it's a thing called a drainage when it goes down your nose down to your throat, and you get this little scratchy feeling, and it enters your body, and it sends a calmness over you, and you're just nodding out from it. It's like everything that you were dealing with is just washed away.
Mm-hmm.
So after a period of time of me snorting, I couldn't do it anymore because it burned my nose so bad. So I had an older woman who taught me how to cook it up. And she said, just shoot it up your nose. Just take the needle part off and squirt it up your nose. But of course, I still didn't like that. So I wanted something that instant gratification. So she introduced me to the needle, and she tied my arm up, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't stand the sight of blood. And she was like, it's not going to be but a minute. So when she put the needle in my arm and pushed the dope up in me, I was like, it's like I just melted. All the problems I went through that day, that week, that month, that year just rolled off me, and I just felt good.
And so there starts the addiction, because that temporary relief is something that's constantly sought after, which really doesn't resolve the problems, but it only gives you that temporary relief from the problems.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
in NA, they have this saying, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to
Very
say
true.
that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that goes to say that, um, okay, give you an example. Today I'm 6 years clean.
Mm-hmm.
I get off this interview with you, something goes, something happens, and I'm like, I can't deal with this mess. I'm going to go get me a bag of dope, and I'm going to relieve myself. So I go up on the avenue, I get this bag of dope and I shoot it up, and whatever I was going through was gone for that moment. And I'm like, oh, that felt good. Let me get another bag. And then next thing I know, I'll be off to the races. And because I could never do one of anything, I'm extremist. I'm extremist when it comes to drugs. I cannot stop. And it was just, like I said, by God's grace this time that, he had gave me the courage to go on and show me that there's something better in my life. Because before this, Simone, I was 14. I had stayed clean 14 years. And that was at the time when I did a 10-year sentence in North Carolina.
Tell us about that. Tell us about how did you get to a point where now you're doing time?
Okay, so in 95 of October of 95 exactly, again, a so-called brother I grew up with had just come out of a body cast, and he had a halo on his head. So he needed someone to take him down to North Carolina because he couldn't maneuver in traffic. So me being the person I am, I said, okay, I'll take you. So we got in the car and we, hit on down North Carolina. Once we got to, let me see, we were on our way to Lincolnton because he had a court date there. He stopped over his family member's house and told him he was going to court. They gave him some cash, and he was telling them he didn't really need anything because he was just going to make this court date. So long story short, we got to the court building. They told us to come back at 1. We went up to the stores, and he wanted to go shopping for his wife. He called her and asked her what kind of shoes did she want, and apparently she told him. So I said, I'm going into the McDonald's and get something to eat, but do you want something? He said, yeah, he'd get something. So I don't remember the exact order, but that nonetheless, I went in there and got our food, and I came back and sat in the car. He comes running up to the car, and he got a bag of shoes in his hand, and he's like, okay, I'm ready to go. So we're driving off, and the police siren is going behind me, so I go to pull over, and he takes his foot and pushes, over to the gas pedal, and we're zooming now. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just, I'm trying to maneuver in traffic, holding the wheel steady. So we go up this big hill, and we go down, and we hit the railroad tracks, and we go up in the air, and it slams down, busts a tire. He jumps out the car and runs. And I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Wow.
So the police finally comes up, and he said, you're being arrested for robbery. I said, I didn't rob nobody. He said, so where's the guy that was with you in the car? I'm like, I don't know. I just know my head hurts because I hit the steering wheel so hard. I don't know what was going on. So in the back of the car, he saw 2 bags of shoes. One was from Shoe Show and the other from Pick and Pay. So he said, what size shoe do you wear? I said 7, 7.5. He said, these are 10s, try them on anyway. So I tried them on. He said, okay, they don't fit you. What were you doing with him? I said, I was bringing him to court. He said, well, just so you know, he robbed 2 shoe stores. He said, so why were you eluding my sirens? I said, I wasn't. He put his foot on the gas pedal, and we just took off. So I'm kind of like discombobulated. He's asking me all these questions, just spilling them out so fast. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me get this straight. You're saying the guy I'm with robbed 2 shoe stores, and then he took off. I'm in the car. We're going full speed. He jumps out. I'm here. Now what? He said, well, we're going to charge you with accessory after the fact, aiding and abetting. I was like, accessory after the fact? He said, you didn't report it. I said, how am I going to report something I don't know about?
Are you kidding me? And where was
No.
What city?
This was Lincolnton, North Carolina.
Oh, boy.
I went to prison, and I went to the county jail, in 96. I stayed there for 9 months. I headed over to NCCIW, which is the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women, which is on Bragg Street in Raleigh, North Carolina.
They didn't even extradite you back home.
No.
Wow.
Because the crime happened in North Carolina, and I'm trying to fight this.
Wow.
So, like I said, going to court, this is what really got to me. Now in court, the store ladies had came in to testify, and when the judge asked them about a woman being involved, they said there was no woman involved. Now, all they wanted to do was hear from the guy I was with to say that I had no involvement whatsoever. I didn't know anything about this. And When I tell you, he gave me this blank look and would not speak up, and I'm like, "Are you serious? You're not going to say anything?" He turned his head and then, just blocked me out, and I'm like, "Oh wow." So when the judge hit the gavel and said, "Well, Sharita, at that time I'm a Washington. Sharita Washington, we sentence you to 13 years, 1 month, and 25 days at the North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women." I fainted. I fainted. 13 years?
Yes.
Are you
What did
serious?
you do?
I said I didn't do anything. And they were like, okay, so you're being charged with accessory after the fact, aiding and abetting, 2 counts of robbery. And then they had said it was a dangerous weapon. I said, what was dangerous? His halo? Because he didn't have a gun. And
Wow.
it just blew me. So
Dang.
July, I'm in prison.
Mm.
Yeah, July, I'm at the prison, and I had wrote my mother and told her. I said, well, they sentenced me, and I told her what I had. I said, so whatever you do, please don't tell the family I'm locked up again. Just keep this between us, and this is how it's going to be. Now, during this time from July to October, my mother had been writing me, but around September, I didn't get a letter, and I was kind of like wondering why I didn't receive a letter from my mother. And the last money order I think I got from my mother was in the end of August, early September, I
Mhm.
want to say.
Mhm.
But I never knew until my aunt had got the letter I sent to her, which was, like I said, intercepted by her. And they wrote me back, and she said this: Sharita, your mother is no longer here with me. I'd like to know if we can come up and visit you. So I held the letter for a couple of weeks debating, do I want to see them? Why did my mother tell them I was locked up? This was the last thing I wanted them to know. 97, they come up to the prison to see me, and they're like, they're talking to me, and ain't nobody saying anything. So I'm holding my cousin's baby, and my aunt was like, well, we need to talk to you. So my cousin's like, let me see my baby. I'm like, let me hold the baby. I don't even have my kids with me, so let me hold your baby. And she was like, no, I need to change him. I'm like, just take the baby. And I never seen none of this coming. So my aunt said, Sharita, we just came up here to let you know that your mother's no longer with us. I said, well, yeah, you told me that. So where's she living now? And it just got eerily quiet in that whole gymnasium.
Mhm.
It's like everybody knew but me. So
Mhm.
when the words came out that your mother passed October 2nd last year, which was 96, I just stopped. I looked, my head swirled around, and only thing I remember was the guards picking me up off the ground.
Mm.
And they went to give me my mother's obituary, but because it's prison, you can't do that. They had to mail it in and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I was like, my mother's gone. My mother was just 49 years old.
Wow.
My mother's gone.
Mm.
I'm never going to hear that laughter.
Mhm.
I'm never going to be able to say, Mom, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Mom, I love you. And I'm
And you get
sorry,
locked
but
up for something. That's okay. That's all right.
it still hurts after 24 years.
Yeah.
You know, um, my mother was my everything.
Mhm.
My mother was my everything because I'm her only child by marriage. I'm her only child. Like
Mhm.
I said, my father has other kids, but I miss my mother, and it was just hard. That was one pill that was actually hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm doing a 13-year sentence. When I come home, I'm not coming home to nobody. But except for my kids, but I'm not coming home to a mother no more.
On
You know,
something that you didn't do.
yeah, for something I didn't do. So,
You do the
um,
whole 13 years?
no, actually, I did 10 years. I came home in March of 2016.
And that's a very hefty sentence for something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody was hurt.
no,
That was,
no,
wow.
no, nobody was hurt, and except for me, I was hurt.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, the guy that done all this,
Whew.
he's still in prison.
Well, okay.
And I say he deserves that.
Yeah.
He deserves that.
He never admitted to the truth
Never,
that you weren't there.
never.
Wow.
never,
Okay.
you
Wow.
know. So I remained in North Carolina when I came home from prison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got so emotional with my mother. I have said the wrong date. I'm sorry.
That's
Two,
okay.
2006 when I came home, because I did, like I said, the 2 year sentence from 96 to 2006.
Mm.
2007, um, what did I do? 2007, I had my last set of twins.
So you had two sets of twins.
Ain't that something, Simone?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, Sharita.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Once you get into the book, you'll get to know it.
Okay, and so what we're going to do is take one more commercial break, and then we're going to talk about the book, and then we're going to talk about how you are today. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't go away, people. We have a lot of good stuff coming up right after this commercial break.
The First Baptist Church of Highland Park Elevation Career Ministry, under the blessed leadership of Pastor Henry P. Davis, is excited to offer virtual professional development training each and every Monday at 6 o'clock p.m. Won't you join us? For more information and to register, send an email to elevation-employment@fbhp.org. You'll be glad you did. The First Baptist Church of Highland Park, doing our part in the community. Faith strong, faith forward, I focus.
Welcome back to Simone Talks. Today we're talking about addiction and the victorious overcoming story of Sharita Brandon. Sharita has shared, you have shared so much. Wow, 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 wow.
Yes.
And as long as I have known you, there's so many stories that I did not know. And it just goes to show that you don't know the struggles that people are going through unless you know they shared with you or you're a part of it. And I am
Yes.
so sorry that you've been through so much. You have been through so much. And then
But
to be imprisoned for 10 years on something that you had nothing to do with. It's just, wow, it really
yeah,
blows my mind. But you're here now. You're here
I'm
today.
here.
You're here today, and you have a different story.
I do.
You have a different story. Tell us
Yes, I
about
do.
what your turning point was.
And I got it. I got on Facebook for the first time, and I was scrolling through it, and I saw this young lady that looked like me, and I was like, "That's my sister." I said, "Well, she looked like my sister."
Oh,
So
wow.
so I went to the guy next. I said, "Does she look like me?" He said, "You're a twin." So I went on Facebook. I said, "Hi, this is Sharita. You look like my sister. If you are, call me at this number, and we'll chat." So 5 minutes later, my phone is ringing and she's crying and we're snotting
Oh,
off.
my gosh,
Yes.
Sharita.
And
That
I was
is,
like, Simone,
oh, my,
oh my goodness. I
I,
cried and
I bet you
oh.
did. I bet you did.
Yes, and she was like, "Girl, we've been looking for you. Dad been wondering where you were." And
Oh,
and she was like, when your mother passed, Dad went through this and through that. And I'm like, yeah. I said, she was like, "How you doing in North Carolina?" I said, "I miss my family." I said, "I don't have my mother no more, so there's no
mhm.
need to come to DC." She said, "Well, you're not coming to DC. You coming to Maryland, so you need to pack your stuff. You coming home with me." And I was like, "I
Yeah.
can't do that to you." She was like, "I'm telling you, you're packing your stuff. You're coming home."
Now, did they
So
know your background? Did they know your addictions?
yes, yes. I
Hmm.
had been battling addiction, like I said, for so many years, Simone, and having my little sister, I try to, shield her away from all that. And
Hmm.
just like with my little brother, I tried to shield him away from it, the street life, because I told them the streets, they're not your friend.
Mm-mm.
They're not your friend.
Hmm.
And my brother had grew up, you know, um, selling drugs,
Hmm.
doing what me and my dad did. He smoked a little weed and everything, but other than that, he didn't get into hard stuff like I did. And thank goodness my sister, she hasn't even picked up a cigarette.
Oh, good.
So as I was saying, when I came home finally,
Mm-hmm.
I was clean. I was off of drugs because I just knew I had to, get something together with myself coming home with my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So how, before you go, how did you get to that point where, okay, I'm clean? How did you get that out of your system? Was it while you were in jail or?
well, when I was in prison during the 10 years, I had stayed clean.
Okay.
Now, when I came home from prison in
Mm-hmm.
2006,
Mm-hmm.
being when I was incarcerated, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the story as we've been talking, but when I say my mother best friend, when during the time when I was 13,
Mm-hmm.
she had raped me. She had turned me out to be with a woman, so I thought that that's what I supposed to been with, a woman.
Oh.
So I'm going around, I'm gay, I'm gay, I don't want no man, I don't want, and I didn't, I just pushed the guys away and everybody trying to holler. And I'm like, I don't want you, I want a woman. And realizing that that's not what I really wanted. I was searching for love in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was incarcerated and I was in a relationship with a young lady, I came home first and she came home behind me. I had got an apartment, started working, and we were living together. Um, she went back out on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I, of course, felt bad
Mm-hmm.
and I picked up and
Mm-hmm.
went back. My cycle started over again.
Mm-hmm.
So me and her separated. I got with the guy, and that's when I had my baby boys.
Mm-hmm.
And after I left him alone, I met this other guy, and he treated me so good, Simone. I just thought that that was the way a woman supposed to be treated. I mean, and it wasn't so much as the money. It was because he had an abundance of drugs. I didn't have to worry about going out tricking or nothing like that, selling my body, because he had just what I needed. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Oh,
So
okay.
I
Okay.
married him, and it was a marriage of convenience because I really had nowhere to go after I left my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I was going from pillar to post in North Carolina. So he and I married. He beat me, and I was repeating the same cycle my mother was. He's going through something. He didn't mean to do it. Somebody stole his package and he took it out on me. But it's okay. We're gonna get it. It was all the lies I was feeding myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved away from him and went to Goldsboro. And like I said, I was in Raleigh then, so I moved to Goldsboro, and I got into a little program. And when I got in that program, I was clean. I got a house, and I was paying. Oh, it was so wonderful in Goldsboro. I only paid $500 for a 3-bedroom house, one level.
Oh, stop it. Go, girl, here I come.
Yes. So this little house was my first house, and I thought it was the best thing for me because on the side I had a little carport and I call it a bachelor's pad because when you walk through the French doors, you have a living room, and then you open the door and you go down the hall and you had the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. So I rented it out.
You had it made.
Yes. So the older guy that rented from me, he was paying the $500 for that, and I just paid the electric. So I was doing good.
That sounds like a
So,
winner.
girl, wasn't it? So when like I said, when I got in touch with my sister, moved home, I had some money, so I didn't have to worry about that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll have money to help my sister out in her because she had a house,
Mm-hmm.
and her letting me stay. And she was like, no, just get yourself together, save your money, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, cool. But I was putting money to the side, and then I went into my old neighborhood and I met this guy.
Oh, no.
But this the kick. The guy I met, he was on heroin. He snorted the dope.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just buy it for him because he didn't have no job. And I really liked this guy. So I'm like, for me to keep this guy, I'm going to keep on feeding him money because he's going to love me as long as I buy him drugs. And that's what I was doing, buying love,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching him nodding out one day, and I was like, dang, I missed that feeling. So when I go get the money out and give it to him, I know where they went. So I go buy me a bag and I sneak behind his back and do it. I'm going to buy my drugs and get high. And I went to go find someone that had, a needle, a diabetic needle.
Mhm.
So when I did that, I shot that dope up and I was off to the races again. I was like, this is what I've been missing all this time.
So how many times did you get clean and come back and get clean and come back? How many times did
I'm
you try?
numerous, Simone. I can't even count.
Yeah.
I can't even count. What
Yeah.
I can say on this go round,
Mhm.
when enough was enough, I'm bringing you up where I'm closing out on my addiction.
Mhm.
So this one night, I had went down this guy's house, and I had my boyfriend with me. I had just bought, I think about five dimes of crack coke. I
Mhm.
bought a half a spoon of dope
Mhm.
and some alcohol. And I got the alcohol for the guy that I was staying down there with at his house, because that's what he did. And I asked him, can I do my stuff here and can I lay on your couch and I'll be gone in the morning? He was like, yeah. So after the drinks went, he was like, well, I want a crack rock. And I said, okay, well, I went on and gave him one. And when the stuff was gone, he said, you got to go. I'm like, go where? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's raining outside. Where you expect me to go? He said, out of here. And I said, I don't believe this. So I left out. It's raining. I went up on Martin King Avenue at that little park across, from where Rehoboth is, that little park by the Popeyes.
Mhm.
So I went over there and I laid on that bench and I cried. I said, God, I
Mhm.
can't do this no more.
Mhm.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
If you are who you say you are, save me from this destruction. Help me.
Yeah.
And it was like God appeared in front of me, like you and I see each other on this phone. It's like he showed himself and said, when the sun comes up, you're going to know your direction. I
Mm.
cried and I cried, and he said, wipe your tears.
Yes.
There's no more, you don't have to cry no more.
Mhm.
Simone, I got off that bench when the sun hit. I
Mhm.
saw I saw a couple of the dope boys. I saw a couple of crack boys, and the liquor store was open.
Mhm.
And I had like, I think maybe $27 in my pocket. But God put a tunnel vision on me. He kept me going.
Mhm.
So I went up to the bus stop. I got on that W4. I
Mhm.
went up to Nella Road, got on that 36,
Mhm.
and I hit it up to PIW, went on Wisconsin Avenue.
Mhm.
And
That
from
is,
that day, I didn't look back.
PIW is what?
Huh?
What is PIW?
PIW is Psychiatric Institute of Washington. It's a detox place, but it's also a psych ward.
Mm.
Yes. And from that day, I said, okay, I'm going to do this with or without you. So I got clean. I did the detox for 7 days, and I asked them for a program. They told me they couldn't give me a program because I didn't have no ID, because I lost everything from moving from pillar to post.
Mhm.
So I went back on the avenue, and like I said, I still had that $27 in my pocket, Simone.
Mhm.
So when I went up to the avenue, this young lady, I call her my aunt. She saved my life. She said, what you get ready to do? I said, I'm going to go get me some dope, some crack, and a bottle of alcohol, and I'm calling it a day. She said, no, you're not. You just came out of PIW. Give yourself a chance. I said,
Mhm.
I did, but no one's trying to help me. So
Mhm.
that's what I was saying.
Mhm.
Just God ain't who he say he is. He didn't turn his back on me. He didn't got me up here, but then he left me. And
Mm.
I was mad.
Mhm.
She said, I'm gonna take you to your cousin's house. You better have this money when I come back to pick you up in the morning. She said, I'm taking you to some, which is so others might eat.
Mhm.
And she said, before we go there, I have to take you to APRA to get a clearance. Now,
Mhm.
APRA is another little drug place where you get screened to go into a drug program.
Mhm.
True
Right.
to her word, she came and got me that next morning. I had the $27 in my pocket. We stopped. She got me some cigarettes with that money, and I got thrown in the program. And that day was October the 20th, 2014, and I haven't looked back since.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, it
That is
is.
so awesome. And so in that, there's still good news even in that. There's still good news. I looked on the Facebook post. I said, married. Oh, shucks, go ahead.
Yeah, so
I said, yay. Good for you.
girl, so I'm working at the doctor's office because when I went through a training program called Center for Employment Training to help you become a building maintenance service tech or medical administrative assistant.
Wow.
So I chose the MAA course, and it was a 6 to 9 months program. I did it in like 4.5 months. I graduated with honors, and I had got my externship with Dr. Anderson at the professional building. And as I was working there, this young man kept walking in there, and he had an appointment, and I took his name and everything. And he was like, I was like, Mr. Brandon, you can have a seat. We'll get your paperwork and stuff together that you have to fill out. So he kept on talking, and I said, Mr. Brandon, there's no cell phone talking in here. He was like, okay. So he hung up the phone. So he goes across the hall to the little store, and he gets coffee. I'm like, Mr. Brandon, there's no drinking or eating in here. So he was like, well, what can I do? I said, you can have a seat and wait for us to finish your paperwork.
So I was trying to get your attention.
Yeah, and we'll call you. So he said, well, let me give you my number. I said, Mr. Brandon, if I want your number, right here in front of this big computer screen is your number. He said, well, call me. I'm like, man, go ahead on with that. Have a seat, Mr. Brandon. So Mr. Brandon had a 90-day follow-up. And Simone, it's like them 90 days came so fast. Here he go again. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's like my coworker just kept sending him to me. I'm like, why are y'all punishing me? So eventually, as a couple of months went past, me and Mr. Brandon, we started talking. And then I found out also Mr. Brandon was in the same program I'm in of recovery. And I had saw him at one of the meetings I attend. So we got to talking, and Mr. Brandon's next visit to the doctor's office, girl, he bought me a Michael Kors purse down there.
Oh, wow.
And and I'm like, this man, he is really trying his hand with me.
Yes.
Yes. And I thought it was cute. And I'm like,
It
okay.
was cute.
Yes. I'm like, I don't do this fancy stuff. I'm a plain Jane. You know how I am. I don't care if it's Vidal Sassoon, Calvin Klein. Give me a pair of Levi's. I'm okay. And from then on, me and Mr. Brandon had been seeing each other. We went to the Justice of Peace and we got married. February 7th, 2018. Marriage is like parenting. You have to grow into it and learn.
That's right.
Each day gets stronger with us.
Yeah.
Each day. And I told my husband, because a lot of stuff that was going on with me, I went back to where I started from, Rehoboth, and rededicated myself to the church. And because of the COVID, I'm still unable to take my right-handed fellowship, but I'm going to do it. Just waiting on that.
That's right. I'm glad
exactly.
you are happy now. 6 years.
I am 6 years. Simone, it used to be I didn't think I was going to be 6 hours, 6 days. It's like struggles were coming. It's decisions you have to make, and I've been making the right decisions.
You have.
Yeah, we just moved into a new place.
Good. And that leads me to the book. You wrote a book.
Wow. Simone, that was awesome.
Yes, I was so proud. I'm like, what? You wrote a book? I ordered it immediately, and guess what?
I see.
The next day.
I see.
I said, go ahead, Sharita. Look at you. Look at you. How long did it take you to write this book?
Simone, actually, it really doesn't take you long when you're writing about you.
That's true.
And at this time, when I started writing, I was working with Covenant House with the youth. And a young man that stayed in the building, because we had like 3 other residents that weren't with the program that lived in the building. And he came down and started talking to me. He was like, Miss Sharita, I heard you, he said, not being in your business, but I heard you talking about recovery. He said, you're a recovering addict? I said, yes, sir, I am. And we got to talking about my life story and everything. He said, well, you wear your feelings and everything on your sleeve. He said, you don't hide nothing. He said, it was like you was living in the shadows. So once you open a book and you read the dedication and what the shadow is, he gave that to me.
Wow.
And I dedicated that to him because I said, thank you. You gave me this to put in my book, And I can't do nothing but be thankful. When I read it, it was so deep.
Mhm.
I was like, wow.
Isn't that
Yeah,
awesome?
I'm no longer living in the shadows.
Yeah,
I'm in the light. And that's my next book, Coming to the Light,
yeah.
which is in process now. It's being edited.
Oh shucks, yes. Book number 2 coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just in awe because some people have gone through less than what you have gone through and
Yes.
just couldn't cope, couldn't make it. But your foundation was always instilled in you, and God has never left your side. You always came back around. Your story has been, it was it's a lot that's in your story, but you
Yes.
don't know what your story and how it's going to help other people.
Well,
And
Simone,
how it's
actually, like I said, I hope it helps a lot of people
yeah,
because I've lost a lot of friends through this nasty disease of addiction.
you
You
lost a
know,
lot of people.
a lot, yeah,
Yeah,
people. But
yeah.
when I tell you, it's ones that I have actually been drugging with.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, like I said, when I came home in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and here it is, 6 years later, after when I got clean in 2014, here it is 6 years later, and I go up in that park and I see the same people
Same
doing
people.
the same thing
Mm.
day after day after day. And when I look, I'm like, then for the grace of God go I,
Yeah,
because that was me.
yeah.
So when I go up there, I tell people I'm not a judgmental person because
No,
I don't sit high and look low. Only my father does that.
right, right.
But what I'm here to tell you is that it's a better way of life. It's things that you can do with yourself, And I give people information on how they can get to the hospital. The way I got into Washington Hospital Center to work,
Mm-hmm.
I'm there about helping people, encouraging people, and letting them know it's more than life than a drink and a drug.
Mm-hmm.
Look at I'm outside on my balcony and I'm just looking at the beauty.
Isn't that awesome?
When I was
It's,
getting high, I ain't
you're
seen none
seeing
of this.
life, yeah, because you're seeing life through different eyes.
Yes,
You're seeing life through different
exactly.
eyes. And you know what? I could just see that you have the ability to even start your own program. To even
You
start
and a
your
couple
own
of people
program.
said that.
Yeah, yeah, and see that's just like confirmation because
It is.
God gives us purposes in our lives. And you've gone through so much that your purpose being put into a structured process or
Hmm.
program, I just see you just going through that whole park and just pulling them in one by one. And then
Yeah.
everybody else becomes your soldiers. At
Right.
the Rita Brandon Overcomer Facility or
Yes, the
through
mighty warriors.
through the other eye or whatever it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have your name on the building. Sharita Brandon
That's right.
Recovery and Overcomer Facility. There's
That sounds great, Simone. Speaking into existence, girl.
I know that's right. And there's programs that will
Yeah.
financially help you do that. So I just, I'm very grateful that, you are making it. You are making it. 6 years, that is something to be proud of. 6 years
For me.
and counting. And in that
Yes.
6 years, you got married and you're
Yeah.
moving forward and you're doing well and you're looking back and you're saying, wow, you know, so I'm so proud of you. I am so
Thank you
proud
so
of you.
much.
And I'm
Thank you
so
so
glad that I
much.
reached out and I'm so glad that you responded. And I'm
Ah,
so glad I have my book. I did start reading through it and there's a lot, I have my little tabs here and stuff.
right.
Um,
I got you. I got.
yeah, yeah, because I
Yes,
think you have a
ma'am.
lot more to do. Sharita, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you,
so much for
Simone.
joining me today. Thank you for sharing your story without hesitation. Thank you for sharing it to help other people
Yes.
in that type of addiction. I'm so glad
And
you made it. So
yes, thank you for allowing me to be on your show. This is a wonderful experience for me.
yeah, I hope it helped too.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at it may go further than this.
Oh, you wouldn't be surprised. You
Hmm.
wouldn't be surprised when you
I
see things happening. I
yeah,
say you wouldn't be surprised because you know what God can do.
he can do it all. All you have to do
God
is
can do
trust and believe.
yeah.
And that's
Well,
what I
we will
do.
be having you back on the show, Sharita. Thank you so much. God bless
Thank
you. God
God
bless
bless you
you
too,
forever.
Simone.
Okay.
Have a blessed day.
You too.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone. This wraps up this episode of Simone Talks with Sharita Brandon. Thank you all for watching. Bye.
If you are new to the show, go ahead and click on the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment.